You're very welcome to the Woman to Woman show here on Confident Women Ireland's YouTube channel with me, Roisin the Cleric. I am delighted to welcome back Breeda Birmingham, one of Ireland's leading menopause experts who has been breaking the taboo of menopause. Having worked with women for years as a midwife and a public health nurse, Breeda returned to education, completing a psychology degree in 2018 and a sociology master's in 2020. Her master's dissertation was involved in interviewing women on their experiences and understanding of menopause in Ireland, with silence emerging as the real enemy. Opening the conversation by setting up Midlife Women's Rock Project and cafes in 2019 has enabled Breeda to share the knowledge with over 100 women that she has met and coached through the journeys of menopause. Breeda regularly contributes to media and increasingly provides workplace presentations and workshops. Breeda is the author of Ireland's first research menopause book called Midlife Women's Rock, Menopause Story for a New Generation. Breeda, you are very welcome back to Confident Women Ireland's YouTube channel.
Hello, Roisin, and happy Menopause Awareness Week and Menopause Awareness Month. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
And we're both wearing green.
Yes. Don't know why that is, but we are. We're both in green this morning. I mean, it's been a hectic week. World Menopause Day on Tuesday, the biggest ever. Trending on Twitter, the hashtag World Menopause Day was trending for quite a long time on Twitter, which was wonderful to see because it's global. This is, menopause, and this menopause revolution that's is occurring all over the world, which is wonderful.
Breeda, we've had you on a couple of videos, and if anybody wants to find out more about menopause and Breeda's background, do check out the 2 previous videos we have with Breeda. But Breeda, since we last spoke to you in 2020, a lot has happened. You have published Ireland's first research menopause book here in Ireland. Wow, and you have been so busy. First of all, tell us about the book.
Roisin, the book, I suppose I look at it as it's like my COVID legacy. I started writing last year, it was January, February, and we went into the second or third lockdown at that stage. And I just said to myself, what am I going to do now? Here we are in lockdown again. So I put my head down and I started writing. And I had set myself this task that I'd have it published by the 18th of October, World Menopause Day. And as luck would have it, I did get the Kindle edition out on Menopause Day last year, and it became an Amazon bestseller. And the book followed then shortly afterwards, the hardback and the paperback. So it was an amazing experience. It's a legacy for my daughters, I suppose, in particular as well. And it's a book, it's not an academic book, even though it came from my master's interviewing women on their experiences and understandings of menopause. It's a book written for everyday women in order that they understand the, what menopause and perimenopause is all about. So diagnosis, symptoms, how best to manage it, women's stories, very powerful women's stories in the book, how women have been navigating this silent passage for such a long time, and the lengths that they are prepared to go to get information that hasn't been widely signposted in society. So yeah, it came out last year, became an Amazon bestseller. It's available in the book centre here in Waterford, a lot of the Eason stores in Ireland, all the Amazon platforms. And I was so delighted there, going back about 3 months ago, it was selling in Japan. And what was so interesting about Japan, Roisin, is that in Japan, they look at menopause very differently to the West. And I was delighted to see it.
And you're in some bookshops in America, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. Barnes and Noble actually have it, and Walmart, I was told, in America early on this year. I got a message through, was it Instagram, I think, or LinkedIn, saying that somebody had bought it in Barnes and Noble. So it was wonderful to hear that.
Right, so you're not just now in Ireland, you are spreading your wings and people are hearing about menopause and Breeda Birmingham and reading your book and your message. That is wonderful. Congratulations, Breeda.
Thank you. Thank you,
Because
Roisin.
you do come from a medical background. As I said in my intro, you were a midwife, public health nurse. Your degree is in psychology and your master's in sociology. So you do have a solid academic and medical and also a practical background in menopause.
Yes, I do. I suppose the biggest reason I think I'm working in the space now, because when I went back to university, let's say at 49, I never imagined myself to be here inside working in the menopause space. But what resonates here is that I'm working again with women, and most of my early working life was with women as a midwife and as a public health nurse working in communities. I was very fortunate. I worked both in the public and private sector, and I also worked in hospitals and in the community. And women and mothers in particular, I did a lot of caseloads with mothers and families. And I feel I'm back again working with women, and I love working in the space. And the problem with menopause I've seen from my research now and from working with women is we've had no preparation, we've had no education, and there's been no widespread signposting of where to go for help. And women are doing each other a massive disservice in not talking about menopause, because we can actually really help one another if we started openly talking and, you know, sharing how we're managing it. I mean, just this past week, I was doing a talk and somebody asked me about this Marion Gluck clinic in London. Now, I am aware of the clinic. It's a private clinic. I think it's about €500 to go there. And I know the Department of Health in England, you know, they had some question marks over it because it's compounding hormones. But, you know, women were obviously travelling from Ireland to this clinic in London. I don't know if it's still open or not. I'm not aware, but this is about the sharing of information. You know, what has worked for somebody, what works for somebody else. You know, and that is vital for everyone.
Because your main message at the very beginning, when I first met you, 2018, 2019, was we need to break the taboo and the silence of menopause. And then you launched your Midlife Women's Rock Cafe.
That's correct, yes. Yeah, my main message, you see, was around the silence, because in my own research, again, I'm looking at menopause from the lens of, let's say, a lot of Brené Brown's work, the social scientist, and where shame lurks, there's massive conformity and silence. And this is at the root of a lot of the issues around menopause and the exacerbation of symptoms. A lot of them are around the shame. We're in denial, we're fearful, we do not want to have reached menopause, because there is this belief system that, you know, the best of our life is behind us, that we're heading downhill, that there's degeneration, deficiency, disease. All of this language has been handed down to us about menopause, and that it has contributed hugely to the silence and to the shaming of menopausal women. So there's a lot of work to be done around the stereotypes and around the these, I now call them myths, around women in their menopausal years, because we must remember, Roisin, life expectancy is very different today compared to previous generations. You know, we're going to be, the average age a woman lives now is into their mid 80s. So, you know, if you reach menopause at 50, 51, you're talking about another 40 years. So, you know, there's a lot of living to be done. So we need to change the way we've been framing menopause, because the old way has not benefited women or society at all.
And it's also true, Breeda, when you think about it, the main message out there lately is about, you know, the shame. And it's all about hormones, you know, but we midlife women, we are more than hormones. Because as we chatted before, for me, my menopause was yes, it was horrific. And I remember, as I said in previous interviews, and I tell everybody, when I met you and went to your very first midlife menopause cafe, that you said, Roisin, your body will rightify itself. I said, look at me. My legs are like tree trunks. They were filled with fluid. I was flooded. And you said everything will rightify itself. And do you know what? It's starting to. It has. I'm not as flooded with the fluid. And I was speaking to a friend of mine in Derry, and we had the same conversation. And I said, Breeda Birmingham said to me, what I'm saying to you, your body will rightify itself. And we are more than our hormones.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I mean, the hormones are a huge part of this puzzle around menopause. And I see it as this puzzle, and we still do not have all the pieces of the puzzle. But in bringing it into the public consciousness and into the public domain and spotlighting the importance of it, we then would be able to, find those last puzzle pieces and those last jigsaw pieces, because menopause doesn't just impact women in their midlife years. We've got early menopause, we've that surgical menopause that comes on so suddenly. We have, after a hysterectomy or one's womb being removed, we've got that medical menopause with cancer treatments. Again, a load of work needs to be done around how best to support women around these transitions in life. But I have seen, and I think I've said this to you before, Roisin, over the last 2 to 3 years, in particular in the UK, because I do a lot of work in the UK as well, bringing it into the public domain has brought more funding, has brought more research, is bringing the tech companies in, the pharmaceutical companies, the big brands are starting to bring it out. And that is all going to massively benefit us as women moving through our midlife years. Hormones and hormone replacement therapy, yes, that is part of this story. But the story is actually an awful lot bigger than just HRT or not HRT. It's about the value of the midlife woman in society.
Yes.
And culturally, there has been very little or no value. And unfortunately, there are still countries today where the menopausal woman is considered, it's a death sentence. I won't name the countries now because they're in the news of late again, but it's a complete death sentence to reach menopause, and huge percentages of the population hide it. And I was only reading that recently. But this is why we've got to go the other way. Bring it out. Let's talk about it. Support that 20 to 25% of women that have severe symptoms that deserve to be supported. And I have to say, the government in Ireland are really starting to respond to those of us that contributed to the Women's Health Task Force going back to the end of 2019, early 20. We were up in the department. I was one of them. And we asked for, the awareness campaign, the medical clinics. That's all actually happening now in the last few months, which is wonderful to see.
And Breeda, you have also been very busy. You were last week, or was it this week? You were down in University College in Cork giving a talk. Tell us about that.
Yes, no, I think this is, it was quite a trailblazing event, because CUH had organised a seminar on menopause in the workplace, and they had, I was there, Dr. Brenda Moran, she's a menopause specialist from Cork, was speaking. They had dietitians, psychologists, physiotherapists, so it was multidisciplinary, and it was superbly organised with these gorgeous smoothies and lovely snacks, and it was really well organised, goodie bags. But I think CUH are probably the first big hospital in the country, in Ireland, that probably organised that. They are the largest teaching hospital. I thought they were one of the largest, but somebody corrected me because I had it up on social media, and they said we are the largest teaching hospital in Ireland. So it was wonderful to participate. The interaction was amazing. The voracious appetite for information was amazing there on the day, and that's where I spent World Menopause Day. So it was great. Hopefully other colleges or hospitals, universities and colleges will follow suit, because I work in the UK as well with this wonderful company called Henpicked Menopause in the Workplace. And we go into the NHS trusts, we go into universities, we go into the big pharma companies, we're in with the government and councils. So it's amazing how, people are starting to understand the value, I think, of the midlife woman in the workplace, Roisin. That's what's coming to the fore, the value, the experience that they are actually bringing to workplaces, and companies want to retain them. And that's why they're bringing in companies like the one I'm working with in to provide, we work with them over a period of 6 to 12 months, and we completely change the culture within the organisation around menopause.
And too, Breeda, there's a lot of positives about menopause, as we mentioned. You know, a lot of women go back to university, a lot of women change careers, a lot of women do get promoted during menopause. And women in midlife, we have so much knowledge, wisdom, and life experience behind us.
Yes, and that is so true. You see, that I think unfortunately menopause and the mismanagement, is the word I'd use, this mismanagement, this lack of awareness, the fact that we've stayed quiet so long, that has been a barrier to many women either, you know, opting to go for promotion or even to remain in the workplace. I meet far too many women, like in their late 40s or early 50s, that are just, they've had it, they're gone. And a lot of them they've no support, let's say, within in the workplace. Nobody talks about the fact that people are going through these perimenopausal symptoms. They may be working in these high stress companies, huge productivity. But I have seen the opposite. I've seen when you put in the support and you put in the awareness, you put in this open culture of we talking about it, about perimenopause, menopause. It's a transition, just like puberty. We support pregnant women. We're now supporting menopausal women. And you must remember, symptoms occur, but they don't last, provided one gets the right support. It's about finding the right. And then menopause is complex, as you know yourself, Roisin, because every single one of us are different. We bring a different medical history, we bring a different life history, and there's no one template for managing menopause. And that is
it's very individualized. It's very
and
personal.
That's why it's so important, I think, for women that may be suffering with a lot of symptoms to reach out, invest in themselves, find somebody that they can actually go and talk to about their symptoms. Just going back to the promotion, just 2 weeks ago, I was talking to quite a large gathering of principals and vice principals here in Ireland, and they were just saying that they have noticed when it comes to leadership, there's a huge reticence and reluctance within the teaching community of getting younger teachers to step up into principal roles. And they themselves, again, you see, it's about the management at the top. If they've noticed, like, what's going on in the mid-40s, late 40s, why are these women who are superbly qualified, why are they not stepping? Why are they not stepping up? What is going on? And a super example of this is the Midlands Police Force in Britain, 2017. It's there up online for anyone to read. Susanna Fish, she's now an ex-constable of the Midlands Police Force. I had the lovely joy of actually meeting her recently at a ceremony, an award ceremony in London. She had spotted that a lot of young police officers were going out on stress leave, and they were leaving the force, and she was wondering what the heck is going on. She kind of did some investigations, and it was discovered these women were perimenopausal, some of them early 40s, some mid 40s. And they put structures in place, and they were the first, I think, to introduce a menopause work policy in the UK. And that was the police force in the UK. So, and it started to change everything. You know, women are not leaving. Some of those that left came back. But so this, there's a load of work yet to be done, Roisin, here in Ireland on that. But it's the value of the menopause, the midlife menopausal woman in society. And I think we're invaluable.
We are. Yeah. We definitely are. And when you think about it too, Breeda, you know, as I said, even on the radio, when we were on the radio, we give teenagers slack, and we roll up our eyes and go, teenagers, you know, and we give them slack and we go, oh, teenagers. And even with their moods and everything else and not feeling great and the spots. And then you have pregnant women and we go, oh, hormones, you know, pregnant women. And then afterwards, you're a midwife, oh, the baby blues, you know, the hormones. So it's about time we women go into the perimenopause and the menopause, we give ourselves that break and stop being so hard on ourselves and put in self-care structures, as you said, with the workplace structures. That self-care, self-management is going to be so important.
Yes. And it's funny that you mentioned the puberty analogy, because I use that analogy when I'm talking as well. I say that, if you look at menopause as the reversal of puberty, and look, as you said, we allow teenagers to spend hours alone in their room. We allow them to be angry one day, putting their hands around you, hugging you the next day. The body is changing, they're moody, and it's tolerated, it's allowed. But when it comes to menopausal women, looking at it from that perspective, the compassion isn't there in society, nor is the compassion there for ourselves. The guilt so many women feel because they're not able to cope the way they were coping. But the puberty analogy I was delivering actually this past week to a large multinational here in Ireland, and it was like a light bulb moment. They were telling me afterwards, after I had the talk, it was a super way of looking at menopause. As the way the teenagers are going through puberty. So they were saying some of them had teenagers in their home, so they're going through puberty and I'm going through menopause. It can be very difficult, but if you look at it and you talk openly about it and realize, I'm going to have awfully bad days. It's head wrecking at times when one doesn't understand what is going on. And that isolation and loneliness comes from the fact that we don't have friends around us maybe to talk about it, or colleagues at work. But that can change, because I've seen like Bristol Myers Squibb. It's a very large, big pharma company. They won the top award in the UK. Boots were another one that won awards. Loads of the pharmaceuticals, NHS trusts, big law firms, for bringing in the culture of openness in their organization. So it can be done. Changing the culture of one's organization can be done, and it massively helps women, but not only women, Roisin. We've had this before. It's the impact of menopause is not just on women. It's on relationships, it's on families, it's on workplaces, and it's in larger society, that whole impact.
Also, Breeda, when you talk about the compassion. That compassion is when you think our bodies are, as you said, pivoting in reverse. Our bodies, as at the end of fertility, is going through that reverse. That's another shock to our body, and our body and all our organs and everything else, and the hormonal changes. But it's also, we talk about the mindset and the cognitive. And so it's getting that balance right of that compassion, but that self-care. And it's putting them strategies in place, lifestyle changes, and being kinder to ourselves. As you always talk about that, being kinder to ourselves. And that's important to them. Those lifestyle changes you always put up on your social media about getting out to nature.
Yes, I found that myself. That was a wonderful way for me to slow down, because if you have a lot of symptoms, a lot of the time it comes from the multitasking. So I was working, I was studying, I had 4 children. So I was quite a busy mother. And but when I arrived and realized, because I didn't know I was in perimenopause until I started researching, I thought I was gaining a lot of weight because of my exams were coming up. I didn't, and the fluid retention, I didn't join the dots, because my belief as a midwife and a public health nurse, but I've spoken to a lot of GPs here who are friends of mine, and they would say, the information that's available now, they didn't know that 5 years ago. So for me, it was, once your period ended, you were in menopause. And the other one was you got these sweats. That was my belief around menopause, because nobody around me was talking about it. But slowing down, nature. You see, as I wrote in my book, Roisin, there are 4 different dimensions I found in the research around navigating this transition, let's say, successfully in order to thrive. So the 4 dimensions are with the physical. You've got to, there are physical changes. Then there's the emotional, psychological changes that occur. And a lot of these, there's huge opportunities for healing here.
Yes.
Again, coming out of the research, you see a lot of stuff that may have happened in the past may reappear in these years. And it's like we're kind of decluttering it then. If we haven't dealt with it in the past, it comes back up again. It's just part of the transition. Now, it's not for all women, but I certainly have met quite a number of women who are it's like a grief process that's going on. And again, grief and menopause is quite normal for some women to experience. So it's again about finding somebody that you can talk to about all of these things that are coming up. And my motto, everything is manageable. Every symptom that appears is manageable. But the fourth one was the spiritual. Yes. And that there's a spiritual element to us moving through. Again, it's about opportunities, but moving through these years, 40s into our 50s. And in order to thrive, that was the missing link for me. You know, I had the physical, psychological, emotional. There was something else going on. And a lot of women talk about feeling lost. They may be on, let's say, HRT. It's really managed their symptoms, the physical symptoms. But after a year or two, they're still feeling that there's something else out there. This feeling of still not 100% balanced, or there's something going on. And for me, I found there's a spiritual element to it, to this middle year transition. And again, it's quite interesting. And a lot of women have started to investigate it. I say to women, stay curious and keep an open mind, because things will come up. You'll be kind of drawn to certain things, and open the door and follow that path and see where it leads, because it's been amazing with many of the women I've worked with, what that has led to.
And also you talked about the healing process. I had said to you when we're having coffee some days that for me, the most wonderful thing that happened to me, yes, I had, because when I went to your Midlife Women's Rock cafes, that I looked up at the PowerPoint and I had 35 of the symptoms. But I said to you, yes, it's horrific, but it's also one of the most healing times, personal self-healing times of my life. And that's a message that you always put out there, that there's positive sides of menopause and there's life after menopause.
Yes, I mean, there are two stories, so you can buy into either of these stories. The old story is one about degeneration, invisibility, decay, disease, heading downhill. That's the old story of menopause, and that has contributed massively to women feeling ashamed and fearful and disempowered with no agency. There's a new story out there, and it is available to women, and women can access. It's a story about second chances. It's a story about new opportunities, access to a deep creativity that comes as we're moving through these years, access to our own innate power and leadership potential. Like, there's an emerging research around, what is the role of the menopausal woman? And there's a brilliant paper, Killer Whales, Killer Women, from one of the Australian universities around its leadership is one of these positives. That now, it's not for every woman, but when I'm saying leadership, it could be leadership at community level, national level, local level, community, or leadership in the home is one of these positives that we can actually access. Courage, Roisin, is another. Now, I know 10 years ago, I would not have been doing this work. I'd have been inside. I'd have gone on, probably done my PhD, after I did my degree and master's. But I found the courage somewhere to come out and start talking about this. It's too important not to. That's the way I look at it. For women, there's a massive injustice around us not being educated and supported correctly. There's a massive dearth in knowledge around what menopause actually is. Now, it is hormonal, but we have emotions, we have feelings, there's so much more to us as women than just the hormones. And I saw that very early on when I had the Midlife Women Rock Cafes. Women were coming to me who'd been on HRT for quite a few years, and that feeling of loss, sleep problems still that the HRT wasn't managing, weight problems, HRT won't really help there.
And the exhaustion, the tiredness.
Yeah, exactly. That's the self-care. That's all about, reprioritizing, which can be very, very difficult because some of us don't give ourselves that permission to prioritize ourselves. And that's cultural. And that's not just Ireland, Roisin, that's global when it comes to women moving into their menopausal years. But yes, there are positives. Yes, it is head-wrecking for a lot of women who have no idea what's going on. And that's why I wrote the book, because I became like a menopause detective in trying to work out the symptoms I was experiencing. And I mean, how can you expect, you know, every woman to be able to access the knowledge I could access, because I was in a university. So it's that awareness and a huge knowledge gap that we need to get out there. And it's great that the government here in Ireland now, there's the gov.ie/menopause, lovely videos up there explaining the basics on what menopause is, where to go for supports, and invest. If I give one piece of advice, it's you've got to invest in yourself.
Yes.
Far too many women, are not doing that. They're you know, they spend a lot of money in their homes, on their families, and they're not putting the investment into themselves. And I guarantee you, if you do, your life will change.
Yeah. And as you alluded to a few moments ago about women, you know, being more vocal and speaking out, and the positive side, many women find their voice during their perimenopause and menopause.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You know, women today, we have voices. We are educated. Previous generations were not educated. I mean, I love the work, and I look at the correlation between Catherine Corliss. You know, she's giving voice to women who had absolutely no voice. We, as a generation, we are educated women. We have the voices, but we have to be encouraged to use the voices. Far too few women are actually, you know, finding that courage to speak out about issues that need to be brought into the public domain.
Well, Breeda, how can people source your book? And after you tell us that, can you tell us about your Midlife Women's Rock Cafes and how they can find more information about that?
Lovely, lovely. Well, they can get the book. It's on my website, midlifewomenrockproject.com. I've actually got a new stock in here now for a menopause day. And it's also Book Centre in Waterford, Eason's Carlow, Eason's Killarney, and Hodges Figgis in Dublin. It's also across all the Amazon platforms, and it's Barnes & Noble, Walmart in America, and the Kindle edition actually for today and tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow it ends, is 99 cents if anyone is listening. But and the Midlife Women Rock Cafes, Roisin, the first Tuesday of every month we meet in Waterford Health Park here in Waterford between 10 and 12. It's women coming together, talking about menopause, sharing their stories, supporting each other. And I facilitate it and I provide information. I provide and I answer questions. And we are going to be featured in the T.G. Cahard upcoming documentary. Gráinne Seoige came to visit us in the cafe, and it was a wonderful day. And so that's us in Waterford, and they're the cafes. They've been in existence since 2019. We were 2 years online during COVID, and we started back again in September in Waterford Health Park.
Well, Breeda Birmingham, thank you so much for taking the time to come on back to Confident Women Ireland and tell us, update us on what you have been doing since our last interview in 2020.
Thank you, Roisin. It was an absolute pleasure. Keep talking.
And you keep being that activist and spreading the message about breaking that taboo and the silence of menopause. And congratulations and thank you so much for the work that you're doing, empowering women in their midlife.
Thanks, Roisin. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Breeda.